Statistics reveal that only 26% of the engineers who pass out of the 10 lakh odd engineers every year get hired in 1 year of job searching. In our 4 years of journey at Engineering Watch, after interacting with regulators, edupreneurs, directors, faculty members, students, industry bodies, recruiters and government agencies, we realized that the employability issue somewhere runs deep within the entire educational system and has probably no easy cosmetic solution. Any serious solution to this has to emanate from the frontiers of schooling itself. Choosing the right career, course and college post-school thereby plays a very important role, something to which this series Why Engineering is dedicated to. For the sake of information to our viewers, Engineering Watch has devised a unique fellowship program whereby 1000 prospective engineering students are being selected as Engineering Watch fellows who would be provided an experienced mentor from industry and research institutions. Our committed campus partners from across the country are helping in the due screening of the contenders. In our last episode of Why Engineering, we had covered in greater depth the scope and expanse of engineering education in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Professor R.K. Khandal, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Uttar Pradesh Technical University, addressed some of the probing and complex questions pertaining to careers, courses and colleges in engineering. Today we would be carrying out our discussions having the state of Rajasthan as our focus state. We have the great good fortune to have Professor Nalinaksh Vyas, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Rajasthan Technical University. Professor Vyas has taught at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur for 26 long years from 1987 to 2013 till he took over the reins of RTU in December 2013. A man of mechanical engineering, Professor Vyas has served on various national and international panels and has gained the credence of being an innovator changing lives. We have also with us Dr. Arvind Agrawal, a student of medical sciences specializing in psychiatry, but interestingly the key driving force behind an upcoming engineering college in the state capital of Jaipur. Engineering Watch, during its campus walks, unravels some of the unique and transformational experiments going on at Arya Group of institutions, the beyond the syllabus laboratories, as well as the due demonstration of the core key precepts of a particular branch of engineering in the generally vacant corridor walls are some of the worth witnessing experiments. I welcome all our panelists today. My first question to Dr. Agrawal is that being an expert in psychology and also someone who has been witnessing the admissions processes, what is the predominant psychology of the kids as well as their parents in pursuing a career in engineering per se?
Engineering education has become important education in this country. We are a superpower because of our engineering strength and the students. And once the parents comes to our campuses for counseling and for admissions, we find that they are very ambitious. Students are very ambitious. They are looking forward to engineering as a avenue to meet their aspiration and ambitions. And the counseling mainly depends upon their prospective, what will be the jobs they will be getting, how the placement will be done, what is the academic environment, and these are the things they generally ask us.
Okay, fair enough. I would like to welcome Professor Vyas. Sir, it might be being a sea change from moving from a premier institution of the country to managing one of the largest technical universities in the state of Rajasthan. So what specific change of culture and aspirations have you witnessed while being the Vice Chancellor of RTU, especially amongst the students at RTU and particularly with those at the IIT Kanpur system?
Well, as you said, it has been a sea change moving from IIT Kanpur to Rajasthan Technical University. It is a completely different paradigm. But the paradigm shift is only in terms of the infrastructure that is available in big institutions like IITs and the infrastructure that is available at a state level university. But as far as the aspirations of the students are concerned, the aspirations of the society is concerned, and the aspirations of the parents are concerned, they probably remain the same. They are universal in nature. The type of problems that one faces in a state university are different than those in an IIT. The challenges are different, the solutions would be different. I can go on and on about this. But
so what kind of a differential role play do you envisage for these 129 odd engineering institutions under RTU vis-a-vis say IIT Kanpur, which is at the helm of affairs of India's engineering education?
Well, the first and foremost is the question that you raised about the relevance of the kind of education that is being imparted by universities like ours with say employability between 20 to 30% employability. So there is a big question about the relevance of such education. But as we have been discussing over a period of time, if you look at the spread of engineering colleges across the nation in the number of districts that we have requirements, the kind of student population that you have in the various districts of the country. We now, despite all the criticism and despite all the drawbacks in our universities, we find that we now have a basic infrastructure to, we have the buildings, we have some modicum of laboratories, classrooms, etc., which need to be developed and strengthened further. We now do have an infrastructure which can be properly utilized, strengthened for future engineering education in this country.
I would like to bring in Dr. Agrawal at this point because he has built up an institution from scratch and it is providing some meaningful role. Would you like to add upon what Professor Vyas has commented?
On institution level, I can give you my input. That's we work on 5 pillars of quality that are infrastructure, academic excellence, teacher learning processes, training and placements, and R&D and innovations. So first and foremost, I always believe in infrastructure. Infrastructure shows the intent of the institution to give a good education, and then we have to create an ecosystem for academic excellence. There we need a faculty, a principal, and good faculty so that they can give a good teaching. And then teacher learning process should be two-way. It should not be one way. Examination and evaluation process has to be very important. And then we believe in training and placement. We train our students for 3 years, and we hope that on the 4th year when they come for a campus placement, they are ready. And 5th is our R&D and innovation, where we have started working. We have got one of the best robotic labs, Wipro microprocessor labs, CCNA labs, and CNCs, UTMs. So we work on different spectrum, and we try to give the education to the student to the best of our efforts. And though we understand that 4 years of engineering education is less, we can prepare the student for a sector-specific industry. But if industry wants a specific training, then the industry has to come forward, and then they have to train our students. So we have a different industry alliances also, so that we can train the students within 4 hours for their employment.
So probably the relevant handshake which is required for the relevance of such kind of a technical education, what Professor Vyas was mentioning about, might happen in years to come. Sir, there is a general purview that setting the right expectations is probably the first step to bring out the best of an individual. Now in an overly ambitious society, it's not bad to keep ambitions, but setting out the right ambitions and the rightful expectations amidst a culture where peer pressure and parental pressures are driving the young kids crazy, and they are opting for careers just out of because some bade bhaiya, some pados wale have opted for engineering as a whole. My question is to both our panelists. First to Dr. Agrawal, being a psychologist, psychiatrist himself, like how do you see and how do you set up the right expectation of the students and their parents in the first place?
We tell our students and the parents especially that engineering education first 4 years it is a very crowded space, and there is an intense competition, and we cannot finish the competition, but we can teach you the ways to beat the competition. And the moment you will get the employment, you will be in a different league where you will face less competition and high aspiration and ambitions can be met. All you have to do is to read and study in these 4 years, and don't be a part of a crowd. You should know how to beat the competition and then be a part of a organization, getting an employment, and from there ambition and your aspirations can be met very nicely. And you have, generally the engineers become at the age of 21, 22, and after 22 you have got 50 years of working, and in this 50 years आप बहुत जल्दी ही करोड़पति बन जाएंगे. आपको पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि within 5 years in IT and computer science you will be called a veteran. You have experience with you, and within 5 or 10 years you will be in a very middle segment company. You will be having you may be heading it. So that is the way we tell them that in generally first 4 years you will face the competition, but once you get employment, you will be in a different league. So work for the employment.
Professor Vyas has been teaching some of the finest brains of the country. So how do you propose to put such rightful expectations in place?
Well, expectations, I don't blame the expectations because they also grow out of the milieu from where the child is coming from, his family, his home, etc. But way back in the 90s and 2000, the new millennium, when I was the head of the department of mechanical engineering at IIT Kanpur, I used to welcome students with there was an advertisement by Tata Steel. If you remember that, it used to say that this Tata Steel is running hospitals, they are running schools, they sponsor sportsmen, etc., etc., and they also make steel. We used to say similar things to our students who joined IIT Kanpur at that time, that we make politicians, we make filmmakers, we make novelists, we make cricket commentators and statisticians, etc., etc. We also make engineers. So the emphasis of a wholesome education system, whether it is engineering or medical or anything else, is to make a complete human being. What we teach the students in the form of say solid mechanics or fluid mechanics or communications, etc., is all incidental. How it is used by the individual in the long run is entirely up to the individual. I think this is the philosophy which, if followed, would make a curriculum, a paradigm successful, when the attempt is to bring out a wholesome individual out of the churning process that he or she undergoes for 4 years.
So an engineering degree, as per you, is a first step towards a long illustrious career which an individual would build up over a period of time.
I would say a long illustrious life.
Okay.
Rather than a career.
So moving from the careers in engineering, we move on. We all are quite concerned that India's manufacturing output has seen its terrific lows in the decade which has passed by, and it is seen by a lot of experts and analysts that the focus of the next government would be predominantly on revamping the manufacturing sector of the country, which probably would require a lot of highly skilled mechanical engineers various denominations. Now, being a mechanical engineer yourself and a faculty, how do you propose to make RTU courses in tune with the increased national demands in time to come?
Well, within the last 3 or 4 months that I have taken over, we have attempted to start a dialogue with the Confederation of Indian Industries. The Confederation of Indian Industries has come forward in a very positive manner to help us. We've had several meetings with them and come up with concrete proposals like setting up skill development centers, initially in Jaipur and in Kota. These would be replicated in other zonal centers as well. These skill centers would focus on the very subjects that you mentioned, the manufacturing sectors, whereby the students will be selected by CII and trained for a period of 30 months. Along with that, we are also embarking upon a faculty development program in these skill centers themselves, where 5 or 10 faculty members selected by CII would be trained by professionals for a period of 30 days in the areas of infrastructure, in the area of mechanical design and manufacturing, including prototyping and electronic fabrication and design. All the money will be invested by the university. We are not asking the CII or the industry to invest money, but what we are asking them is to help us in managing these centers, so they are not run like typical offices where the cobwebs are also not cleaned, but in a very, very professional manner. So the investment in infrastructure, in machinery, in software would be by the university, and we are seeking CII's help in running these centers. So what we expect is by the end of 1 year, in these 3 areas, in the 2 centers that we are envisaging, we have an army of at least 2,000 to 3,000 students who can compare, who are trained in the latest state-of-art software and hardware in these areas and compete with the very best in the country. And we would have an army of at least 200 to 300 teachers.
So don't we think that our campuses at RTU are equipped enough if these skill centers are developed on their campuses? We propose to create differential skill centers or in the campuses?
No. They would be in the campuses. They would be in the campuses. But since RTU does not have a campus in Jaipur, we would find a place which is common enough for all the institutions affiliated to RTU. We do not wish to be partial to one particular, though we do not have anything against it. But it would be in a campus in a good location, easily accessible to, and this is at the level of the university, catering to all the 120, 130 odd engineering colleges. Along with that, we are taking industry help in also reviving our curriculum, having a lecture series whereby we invite professionals, and this lecture series should be a very, very continuous and a vigorous, vibrant activity where you have professionals talking to students on a weekly basis. We are trying to reform the examination system, trying to bring in end-to-end automated solutions, which hopefully will do away with most of the maladies that are afflicting our examination system. We are moving forward, and we hope that we should be able to see some
that is really fantastic, sir, for a tenure not more than even a half a year, not less than even 6 months, sir has taken over. Dr. Agrawal, how do you tackle the complex question of selecting a discipline of engineering at your campus, because this remains the predominant concern of the students at large, which branch to choose, because they feel that whatever they choose, it defines their career and life, as Professor Vyas says, in times to come.
We personally say that it is not the stream which matters. There are hundreds of thousands of people are working in the CS, and 100,000 people are working and getting employment, and they are doing very wonderful things in electronics and communication, in mechanical, electrical. The branch is not a Paras money. Paras money is you. What you touches will become a gold. It is not that the branch touches you and you become a gold. Whatever branch you take, you excel in it, and you work.
How emphatic is this counseling to the kids who come to take admissions?
They come with a predetermined, and they have a our counseling, more than our counseling, they have a hearing power. Whatever their seniors or the relatives says that this branch is good, they are more inclined towards that branch. But if you see the employment numbers, the highest number is generated by IT industry, IT and ITS industries, and the enrollment numbers, if we see in RTU, is the minimum in IT industry. And I still say IT is the revolution. It will take millions of peoples, and for the next 10 years, IT will be the #1 branch as per job opportunity, as per the
Why do you see that
aspirations.
this discrepancy, what Dr. Agrawal is talking about, is taking place?
Well, I am a believer in the philosophy that at an undergraduate level, since knowledge has become so interdisciplinary in nature, that all these boundaries of civil engineering, mechanical engineering, IT, etc., they are all false. What we need to do to these children is teach them. Every child at the undergraduate level needs to know a little bit of civil engineering. He needs to know a little bit of mechanical engineering, a little bit of IT information technology, computer science, chemical engineering, material science. So at an undergraduate level, he need not be made an expert by pumping all knowledge that is there in civil engineering into this small child, but he should be made aware of these various fields of engineering. And I have been an advocate of branchless engineering at the undergraduate level.
So are you somewhere envisaging a mechanism like as it exists in the medical field, where a 5-year MBBS program teaches all the 22 branches, and then you take a specialization?
I don't envisage that this is going to happen too soon, but we need to bring in more and more interdisciplinarity in our undergraduate education also, after the first year or the second year, where you impart basic science knowledge and mathematics knowledge to
But sir, in an era when colleges are granted seats, they are licensed seats in particular disciplines, how will this interdisciplinary nature evolve? What kind of structural changes you carry forward?
We will have to look at the curriculum. Curriculum needs revision. Most of the university colleges the universities themselves, I realize, are teaching too much. The number of courses that are taught in a particular semester are anywhere between the range of 8 to 9 courses a semester. While if you look at an IIT structure, or it is maximum number of courses in a particular semester is 6.
Yes.
And some of the more progressive institutes across the country and across the world have brought it down to 5 and even 4. And the emphasis now is more on projects, peer learning, informal discussions, and so on and so forth, because imparting education has become more, engineering education in particular has become more challenging, where you need less and less of classroom teaching and more of the other methods of teaching. So we, apart from the overall structure, we also need to look at the content of what is being taught. This change has to come about.
So then what is your blueprint, being at the helm of affairs for at least the next 3 years? How do you want to transform RTU courses?
No, we have embarked upon this exercise, and we are bringing down the number of courses in one particular semester to a maximum of 6.
Okay.
The number of contact hours have also been proportionately reduced. The course material is also being looked at very carefully. We are also prescribing a latest state-of-art book, not at the cost of classics in classic textbooks, but each particular course should have a prescribed textbook from where the material is taught, from where the questions would be by and large asked, and so on and so forth, because students have lost the habit of reading books. They are taught through transparencies, they learn through transparencies if they learn at all, and that is the beginning or the end of education. We are not reading textbooks at all. So we are also prescribing textbook for every course.
So in an era when we are learning more socially, like learning from the experiences of others, RTU is almost completing 8 years of its inception. Do you also envisage to take on the best practices emulated by some of the affiliated institutions and then replicate them at a university level?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. We not at the level of affiliated colleges, because affiliated colleges are by and large a reflection of what is happening in the university. We need to learn from some of the more progressive universities in the country, like this examination system that I was telling you about. Automated processes in administration and so on and so forth. The freedom imparted to the students in terms of doing their projects, interacting with faculty and so on and so forth. These are some of the practices that we will have to bring into our university as well, but it will be a step-by-step process.
Sir. Sir, Rajasthan happens to be a state which has the largest number of private universities if we see a national span. How do you differentiate a private university vis-a-vis an RTU affiliated college as per your experience and understanding?
Well, I would personally welcome these private universities. They are doing a good job, in fact, because there is a demand. And they are doing quite well in terms of providing an infrastructure, but they also face similar problems as far as quality faculty is concerned. The quality of teaching, the quality of question papers, the quality of evaluation. All these things are linked together. When we talk about good quality education, it just does not concern what is being taught in the classroom, but the quality of assignments and problems that are discussed with the students.
But then, sir, India, as we say, the social change which is happening, it happens more out of regulation, more out of the larger boundaries you set across. So as far as the regulation is concerned, as an RTU affiliated institution, you have to go through a particular entrance examination and the schedules of things. So vis-a-vis regulation, because a private university is quite self-regulatory in nature. So in that context, I would pass on this question to Dr. Agarwal, like given a choice to graduate to a private university or remain affiliated to an RTU college, what would be your preference?
Our preference will be that we should be regulated by Rajasthan Technical University only. There is a privatization of the education is there, and since private universities are coming, but there is a certain issues with private universities that they have got admission with them, academic with them, examination with them, and the last thing is to pass out the students. We personally believe that all four things in single roof is a catastrophe, and there should be a third party evaluation. And I personally believe that our job is to teach, and our job is to provide the academic excellence to our students, and RTU is there to evaluate and pass them. And if this power comes to a single body, this becomes a little bit difficult to manage it. Admission, academics and examination and evaluation into a single process, single regulatory university. It should be a two-step process where institution should teach and the university should examine and evaluate and give the degrees.
Professor Vyas, you govern. Yep, sir.
Yeah, it comes to boils down to the question of assuring quality and assuring uniformity. If the university is able to provide all these services to the affiliated colleges and institutions, then the institutions need not even aspire for doing it privately. But it all depends on the university should see itself as a service provider, and how well is it able to provide these services is the question and is a challenge for us. But the university is basically a service provider.
But sir, as a core
facilitator.
differentiator,
A facilitator, a service
facilitator.
provider.
As a first and differentiator, because for a normal student coming from a tier 3 town or from a rural district of Rajasthan, what kind of assurance he gets, the differential of getting a RTU affiliated college evokes a kind of a larger trust rather than a private university which has all the 4 organs under its banner. So what would you give an advice to a...
Well, it has its own advantages, because if he is coming to a university which is run by the state like the Rajasthan Technical University, he can be sure of the fact that the processes which are required for engineering education, they are in place, like the admission process, the examination process, the quality of the degree that he would get at the end of 4 years. There might be problems with the university in providing these services, but in operating these processes efficiently, but there is no doubt that these processes are in place. Most of the private universities, a student before taking admission will have to make sure whether these processes are in place or they are not in place. And the student coming from rural background, the parents coming from rural background, they would not be in a position to make a judgment whether they are going to the right kind of doctor or to a jhola chhap, to a quack.
So one of the other constraints which is somewhere mentioned by some of the progressive institutions under a state technical university framework, that they get little room to breathe and innovate. So does RTU envisages to have a regime where some spaces of innovation in terms of curriculum or in terms of time frames, because some of the colleges say that they want to teach more, but some of the time frame which is provided by the university administration doesn't allow them to conduct that many number of classes in that framework. So one size fit all to all 129 colleges. So do you propose to give some freedom somewhere?
We are definitely not enforcing the lowest common denominator on everyone. But in the last 5-6 months, I have not been approached by anybody that we want to do more than what has been prescribed. Our major challenge has been that you please at least kindly do whatever has been prescribed. So beyond the prescription, we are always open, and we would
So I think the
welcome
onus is on the campuses per se to approach you.
Oh, they have all the freedom. They have all the freedom to do.
So you govern almost to the tune of 129 engineering colleges in the state of Rajasthan. What metrics, what parameter you will give to the students to select which college on those parameters? What are the 3 core parameters which, in your opinion, should be taken up by the students at large?
He or she should first of all look at one's interest. Go to a place where he or she is getting the right branch that one wants. If one's interest is in computer science, and computer science is not available in the good institution that she thinks she can go to, and she has to take, or he has to take, civil engineering there, then that may not be very advisable. First choice, first point would be the branch, an appropriate branch, and then one should look at the qualifications of the faculty that is available. We are also trying to put up the faculty qualifications of each institution
As a mandatory disclosure.
as a mandatory disclosure on the, it should be readily available to the students. The laboratories and the infrastructure that the that the institution has got. But going always be possible for students coming from varied backgrounds. If the background from where the student is coming from is illuminated enough, it would give weightage to all these issues and go through a serious consideration, etc. But by and large, students go by the reputation of the college, the kind of placement that it has achieved, the disciplinary environment that prevails in the institute.
Dr. Agrawal, what kind of counseling process, you have been facing the counseling process at RTU, what kind of improvements or suggestions you would like to give to Dr. Vyas through this platform which will improve this illumination as Professor Vyas was talking about?
All I want to thank you, sir, first, and then I will like to, we are not facing competition only from IITs, and we are facing the competition between government colleges, MNITs, and then private universities. So we want the RT should adopt certain progressive and pragmatic policies, and which can help us to compete with the private universities. And RT should declare that student benefit is paramount, and we all institution, the university, the institution, the faculty works for the betterment of the student. We should keep all the policies and all the decisions towards students, because students in a sense is coming from a varied background, and the 12th teaching is not a highly weak student is coming. We have to support him, and all resources should be given to the betterment of the students. So all the policies which you are going to take, sir, please be focused towards the students' benefit. That is the one thing we want, and the RTU should declare that their policy is to have the student benefit paramount.
So last but not the least, how do you envisage to create RTU as a brand in the whole cosmos of around 18-20 state technical universities which we have? Under your RTU umbrella, there is UPTU, there is HPTU, GTU. So what kind of interventions you want to create RTU as a larger umbrella brand, as Dr. Agrawal was saying, to compete with the other private universities which are coming up and which can take students from any state per se?
Well, first to address his suggestion that student interest is paramount, that goes without saying that that student is paramount. He or she, the student is our first priority.
Thank you.
As far as making RTU making a mark on the national scene is concerned, it will be quality improvement is not an overnight process. It will have to be an arduous journey, step by step process, where we improve the quality of everything. In fact, the quality of our faculty, the quality of our curriculum, the kind of interaction that we have with the industry, the quality improvement in the student projects that they do, quality in the improvement in the hostel life of the students, cultural programs, science and technology fairs, exposure to the outside world. All these are important ingredients that will go into building this university, but it is going to be a long process and a hard process, which will require cooperation from everyone, including
so thanks a lot, sir.
Dr. Agarwal, and I am confident that I will get it.
We assure you all our cooperation. Our association is with you, and whatever the policies you will work out, we will follow the same.
So here we come to the close of this episode of Why Engineering. We have a tenacious academic administrator who doesn't promise too much like the politicians do, and he is hopeful, he is very optimistic, he is working quite hard to make RTU its distinctive mark on the national scene, but he doesn't give false promises. It will take its own time. He sees engineering as an education which prepares you for life. It is just the first step towards your long illustrious life. He doesn't put up the word career per se. And the entire debate and deliberation around what discipline to choose, Professor Vyas has somewhere rested that debate. He says that a student in engineering has to study everything in the age of interdisciplinary education and in the age of convergence of all technologies which is happening these days. Engineering Watch would be coming back again with yet another interesting episode of Why Engineering, with yet another Vice Chancellor of a State Technical University and a interesting campus partner who is really working hard and creating a difference at the local scene with whatever little infrastructure and support which they could gather out of their own personal finances. We would be back again in another episode of Why Engineering. Till then, stay tuned.